Breaking Barriers.
Gary Bontrager, your host here at Breaking Barriers podcast. I'm sitting here in Wadsworth, Ohio, not even sure how to introduce this next guest. He's done so much across the span of motorsports, and so we're just going to dive right in. Ken Veney, thank you for letting me sit down in your shop. We're sitting in front of the little funny farmer, right?
Right, the funny farm hall. This is
Funny
the
farm
little
hall.
funny farm
That's
hall.
what I thought. So we're sitting basically within eyesight of where you grew up, and you still live here today, and been in this shop, and a lot of things have come through this shop. How did that all get started in the beginning?
How did it all get started?
Right.
I mean, how did I get started?
Yeah, you were a farm kid, right?
Farm kid, I raised pigs and sold my little beef, my little porkers.
Yep.
And then when I was 13, I got my first dairy cow.
Okay.
I bought a very expensive registered Holstein calf, $150.
Wow.
Which in those days, that was a ton of money, but
Yes.
this was as high a pedigree as I could come up with. And, my dad, he was a good old boy, and he's going, that calf can get sick and die tomorrow, and you're out to $150. Well, luckily it didn't. But my dad was such a good old boy that I am quite sure today, if that my little heifer would have died, he'd have paid the $150. But he didn't want me to know that. He didn't want me to think it.
Right.
And I just raised those things to save up money because I wanted to. At 13 years old, I loved cars and farming.
Yes.
And I knew I was either going to be a farmer or I was going to have some kind of business in automotive, in
Right.
cars. So I just saved my money as much as possible, and I put all my money away and saved it. And so anyway, then what I wound up doing is when I was 1959, a bunch of us four of us here in town decided, let's go to California. So the four of us took off and went to California.
Okay, let's back up a little, though, before we get to California.
Okay.
If I understood right, though, you started buying tools before you were 19, and you started...
Oh, well, I bought my first car. I was either 13 or 14. I think I was 14, and I bought this old beat-up Model A Ford for $15, and I was going to build that into a hot rod.
Okay.
And had to be a roadster, so I would cut the top off. And my neighbor, he's the same age I was, we got together and we went to Sears and got a welder. So we were welders, 13, 14 years old, whatever. We started welding, and so we could work on my hot rod.
And when cut that top off, like what equipment did you use?
Oh, that was mostly a saw.
Okay.
A hacksaw, just
Yeah.
hacking away. And as far as that goes, I could tell the story about my dad giving me the old manure spreader shed to work on my car.
Okay.
If you got to have a dang car to fiddle with, you can't do it outside. So in the barnyard, we had this old shed from the horse days, which we never had horses, but
Right.
the sheds would open up on both ends, and you would drive, you're done hauling manure, you would drive into the manure spreader shed, unhook the horses, and then just close the doors, and you had a shed there where you kept the manure spreader. So he gave me the manure spreader shed. You clean it up, and that's your garage.
So that became your first shop.
That was, I think I was probably 14.
What year?
Might have been 13. That would have been it was either 1953 or 54.
Okay.
One or the other. So, but then I built that car, I scrapped. It went to the junkyard. I bought it for $15, and that was probably the most it was ever worth. And anyway, it goes, we drug that thing off to the local junkyard. But then when I was 16, I bought my first car.
Okay.
And my dad knew that he had a car guy for a son. And he goes, you can only buy a 6-cylinder, no V8. You'll be hot rodding. It's going to be a 6-cylinder. So I bought this 54 Ford with a 6-cylinder in it, and I no more than got it, and I got a V8 and put in it. And anyway, then that's when I built my first motor.
And
I built it from scratch in my dad's garage with a cinder floor dang garage. And
that was a flathead Ford?
No,
probably?
That was an overhead valve.
It was
1950.
Okay.
It was a 54 Ford, and what I did is I bought a 56 motor from Crestline, Ohio, junkyard, $150 for the whole motor, and I put that in it. And then I decided I wanted to hop it up, and I got in 56 Mercury had 312 cubic inches. That was a bigger motor. So I found one of those and I built that engine, and I've got pictures of the engine, but it had 3 carburetors and Hedman headers and Mallory ignition and an Iskandarian cam. It was a genuine hot rod motor, and it ran pretty good for a kid.
Yep.
It was 60, I was probably 17 before I ever got it done.
Right.
But that was my first hot rod, that I actually drove. And in 57, along in there, it wasn't too good to get to wasn't too easy to get to the drag races. There was Magnolia and Mount Vernon and Akron. There was a few of them around, but what everyone did, all the car guys, and most young guys were car guys in the 50s. And we all street raced.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a bad thing to do, but that's what in the 50s, that's what we did.
And there wasn't the traffic and the people that there are today either. So.
No, it's like in town, Wadsworth was maybe 15,000 people, something like that in those days. And they only had 2 police cruisers.
Yeah.
So we knew where the police cruisers were, and we could go off and race. I mean, this is a terrible thing to say. There's probably might be some kid watching this going,
it's part of your history.
Dad, can I do that? But anyway, that's what we did.
Yeah. That's, and from that, then you kind of jump forward, and then let's go back to where you were at when you're 19 years old, you and a couple buddies.
Yep, we went to California for the winter. It got cold and snowy, and we just took off and went to California and spent the winter. And then in April the next year, we came back.
Okay.
And while we were out there, like I was racing, I had a car that I raced at the track, because it was pretty hard to street race in California because it was all city.
Right.
And it was, you couldn't really street race, but they were ahead in drag strips and things like that out there over what we were here in Ohio.
Right.
But anyway, they had lots of drag strips, and we raced and had fun, hopped up our, what we could legally do to to stock cars. We did that, raced in the stock class.
Right.
And then after that winter, came back here.
So when you were out there, did you work, or you were just?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You found jobs, and
all 4 of us that went out there got jobs.
Okay.
I worked in a tune-up shop.
Okay.
And we didn't really make any more money than we did here, but there was 4 of us, and we had a 2-bedroom apartment, that we split up in beautiful building, $100 a month. The 4 of us, we could do that. But we came back here, and then I got pretty serious. I raced drag strip racing, 1960. That was pretty serious. In like Dragway 42 was open then.
So by the time you came back to do all that, you worked out there just as a regular job in a shop, but you weren't making great money, I'm sure, to support your habit. But then you were still raising dairy cows?
Oh, in 1959? No.
You had sold
No,
that.
I was, like you mentioned something about 15 years old. When I was about 15 years old, it was like, we got to get serious here. This was my dad. He's going, we got to get big. We got to get big or get out. You know, like farmers of this size, you know, we're just going along, treading water. We need to get big or get out of dairy, one or the other. We got to be big dairy farmers. And that, I decided I like girls better than I like milking cows. So let's forget the cow milking and we just quit doing it. And my dad raised beef then.
Okay.
So he kept farming and raised beef till 1972.
So how did you support your habit?
Oh, it didn't cost much.
To drag race?
No, hell no. It was really ingenuity.
Okay.
Ingenuity. You know, it wasn't $750,000 buy me a tractor.
Right.
No, it was ingenuity, and most of these guys were just like I were. You know, like we had a job, made a little bit of money, didn't have any wife or kids or anything, and we spent, you know, you could buy a camshaft for your small block Chevy then from Chevrolet that was really a good cam. You could buy it for $18 or $19.
Right.
You know, and like I remember buying a ring and pinion for my Pontiac. It was $27.
Right.
You know,
so the parts weren't that expensive.
Oh, hell no.
You stayed on the farm, or did you get a job off the farm then when the cows went?
Oh, no, I was working all the time.
Okay.
I mean, even when we had the cows.
You still kept working elsewhere.
Oh, yeah. Like I did 2 jobs for quite a while.
Okay.
I'd work all day. I worked all day in, you know, this is back here. I worked all day in a frame shop, and I, you know, got to be pretty good at doing that. It's probably the thing I would have done if I'd have stayed back here.
Right.
And then at night, I was driving a truck.
Okay.
Hauling coal and lime.
And that's probably the part these young kids should be listening to. I mean, because I was a farm kid too, but having 2 and 3 jobs was never, and I've never been able to quit that.
It's like, and even like I had guys who worked here. One guy worked for me for 42 years.
Right.
Another one for 33. And I used to tell these guys, God dang it, you work your job and you live off of that. You make enough money to live off of. You got a car payment, a house payment, you make it. But if you want to get somewhere, you need to not quit at 8 hours.
Right.
You need to work 12 hours, few days a week.
Right.
You know, that's where you get the extra money to do the extra that you want to do.
100%.
You will work for me and have a decent living.
We've got so much gold that these young guys should listen to you right now.
Well,
that's a fact.
I mean, I looked at it's just like when I had my first funny car, I didn't just come up with money for my first funny car. Like I used to do, and I would do this at home. I did what was called engine conversions. And that was, you had your 1951 Chevy and you wanted to hop it up. What you did is you put an Oldsmobile engine in it.
Right.
Or you had your 49 Ford and you put a Cadillac in. Well, that's what I did. I used to do these jobs at home.
For extra money.
Right. And then I built street rods for myself. You know, I would build a street rod and then sell it. And then...
because then you could work, you weren't really on the clock so much. You could just work whatever hours you wanted.
I did this at night.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I was a Goodyear tire dealer. So I worked my regular business during the day, but I didn't want to have my shop that I need to put tires on. I didn't want to have it laid up with putting a Cadillac engine in a 50 Ford.
And that was when you came back to Ohio.
No,
later.
when I went back to California the next time.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You at 19 went out there, came back, and then you got into street racing here. At what point did you go back to California? Because your life changed.
1960, the same thing.
1960. And you were
in
how
the
old?
fall, in the winter again. In the winter of 59, I went to California, came back in the summer. The winter of 60, I went to California. And I had a 1932 Ford, And what I was going to do, and I put this Pontiac engine in it, and what I was going to do is I was going to travel around the country in this car. You know, go to Montana for a while and get a job in a gas station or something, and I was going to tour the country. But what happened is my 32 Ford, it was looking to be a pretty serious hot rod. So drag racing, maybe we better drag race before we go off and do that. And so, you know, I just kept falling back to drag racing.
So you never did get to travel the country
I
with
never
the
did
32.
Yeah, traveling the countries when my wife and I did it. You know,
did it later. Yeah. So then when you moved back out in 60 for the winter, was that going to be just another deal where you're there for the winter?
Yeah.
And then what happened from that point?
Well, what happened was I started building this car and, we'll just finish this car and then we'll worry about, you know. So I just stayed out there. And when I went back the second time, I went out with different guys. You know, a different group of us went the next time, and all four of us stayed.
Okay.
And anyway, I got too interested in racing, and then there was a street rod club in Santa Monica where we lived that the club didn't have enough money for the engine. Okay. You know, they had a car. Really, a Willys, which was really the ideal car in those days to run in a gas class, but they didn't have the money for it, you know, for an engine. So they gave me the car and I put my engine in it. And then I played with that, but then what happened, in the middle of that, along comes Uncle Sam.
Yes, I was wondering if that happened for you.
Along come Uncle Sam, and so I got drafted. And what I did, I went in the Marine Corps rather than going in the Army, because in the Marine Corps, I didn't have as much time. I didn't have to put in as much time. Okay. So I went in the Marine Corps Reserve, and I went through boot camp and infantry training, and then you got out after 6 months and went into reserve time, where you just went once a month for a weekend. Right. But that was the shortest way. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to get back to racing cars. I didn't want to be in a foxhole. So you were really eating dirt. You were really, you basically were getting the racing disease. You weren't going to get away from it. I'll tell you what, I really had a tough time, and I was a little too young for this and a little too old for that. But I just did the thing that I've always done, which is I tried to do the best I could do with what I had. You know, so this is how much money we got. This is what we're doing. So what happened to that Willys race car and some of that stuff? Well, when I went into service, I gave it back to him. Oh, you did? Yep. Okay. And when I got out, I don't know if I should tell this part. Oh, yeah. It's statute of limitations are long gone. Oh, well, the kids that are listening to this. See, when I was in the 10th grade, I was supposed to be in machine shop. Okay. That's what I wanted to do. And they were building a brand new high school, and the high school was going to have this beautiful machine shop. And in the old school, well, they couldn't take in any more people, and it made me mad. Even though I'm from an educated family, I just said, that's it. And I went to, I just went to working all the time. And, and that was in the 10th grade. So you quit going to school in the 10th grade? Yep. Okay. Even though everyone in my family is a college graduate. Well, but so what happened? Sometimes it works out that way. Here's a good part about that story. I lived in Santa Monica, and right next to Santa Monica is West Los Angeles. Yes. And in West Los Angeles is a high school, University High. In University High, there's so many people in the 50s and 60s that came from other countries and other places that, didn't have high school education. Right. So what they had is they had a complete school at night. In other words, this is University High, a big, beautiful high school, but at night they had the same courses. Right. Every course. And I took every course to complete high school except gym at night. And I would go 5 nights a week, and it took me 3 years to do it. And at age 25, I graduated from high school.
So you did eventually graduate from high school?
Yes, I walked across the stage with my hat and did all that. And the thing that was peculiar is here's this guy that dropped out of high school, and what did he marry? But a school teacher. So my wife graduated from the University of USC, University of Southern California, the exact same week that I graduated from high school.
Yep. That's a pretty good story.
She graduated from college and I graduated from high school.
Oh, gosh.
And you know what? I shouldn't say this, but it never did a thing for me. But it gave me the personal satisfaction that I did complete it. And if I wasn't such a cocky, young, whatever I was, I would have kept going to school.
Well, you were a Marine. It probably fit you well.
Well, I could see everything I needed to do was being held back. I need to be out there doing it. I didn't need to be in school. And I have this problem. I can't read because I'm thinking about other things. And I'll read a paragraph and will have absolutely no idea what I read. My wife would say to me, God damn, how can you figure that out? Some of the things that I figured out on race car, she'd say, how can you do that? And I'd tell her, how can you read down the damn page like that and know everything you read? And I'm still back here at the first thing.
Trying to retain what they're even saying.
I was lucky I did something that I was good at.
Well, I'll share this with you, though. You probably have some ADHD. And a lot of those people are very creative in different ways than people that do standard education. And I can relate to a lot of that, but I'm not here to talk about my story. But some of your education is the same. And I think out of going back to get education, it's more about the discipline that it teaches us than it maybe is what we learn.
Right.
But folks like you are very ingenuitive, and you really, the things we're going to continue to talk about, it's just how your mind works and how you've got a hands-on work. So when you say you shouldn't tell young kids, one thing we're seeing more today, and I'm kind of taking a sidebar here a little, but one thing we see more today is the trades and people going into tech schools and trying to maybe get into things, if they are the type of person that works with their hands. So don't feel bad sharing all this, because you're probably going to inspire some young teenager that's struggling with focus and feeling like he's maybe not very intelligent. The fact is they are. It's just, how do they learn, and how are they translating that into what they're going to do in life skills? So don't apologize for what you've done.
I didn't understand any of that. It was just happening to me, even though I didn't know.
Yeah, no, a lot of your experiences I can relate to, but you're obviously a very intelligent human being, and it's not measured by the diplomas. But I've never sat down with somebody who has a Wally sitting here and then on his pulling vehicle. So you've spanned a large gap of things. But let's carry on. Another thing that I get into, you brought up your wife now. How did you two meet? I feel like that's got to be a unique story.
Well, how did we meet? She was she went to an all-girls Catholic school for a while, and then she wound up in her folks moved from New Orleans to California. They moved back and forth, and so she wound up her last 2 years in college at the University of Southern California. And this is a dumb story, but this is what really happened. Her mother was a realtor, and she also managed this big apartment complex. And she always drove Lincolns. And there was this guy that lived in one of those apartments that worked at a Lincoln dealership that she got to know, and that guy happened to be from Wadsworth. Him and I were old friends. Only he's about 5 years older than I am, but I knew the guy real well. And so I went to a wedding this friend of mine that I went to California with, when he got married, anyway, this is a goofy story, but so anyway, they decided, this guy from Wadsworth with the Lincoln, he decided we ought to fix old Veney up with the landlord's daughter. So that's what they did.
They set you up on a blind date.
We got together and we played cards. That was our first date, so that we could introduce us, and then so we got introduced, and we both kind of liked each other. And so we had our first date. The only thing was, well, our first date was going to a Dodgers baseball game.
Okay.
And she wouldn't go unless she could take her brother.
She wasn't sure about you.
So it was Rona, her brother, and I went to the baseball game. Oh, yeah, and the Corvette was definitely a two-seater. But the three of us went to the ball game in the Corvette.
Okay.
And then
it was your Corvette?
Pardon?
It was your Corvette?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Which I tore up. I would baby it, and then maybe I'd have a beer or two, and then I would get abusive, and so I wound up, I raced it at the track.
Okay.
And drove it to work every day. So this is fun racing. This is what was called bracket racing.
Right.
If you ever heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
So I bracket raced it and had some fun with it. And then we got married, and I needed to sell that expensive thing. So I sold it for $900 in a 55 Chevy, which would be, a California Corvette, never been in any bad weather, would be worth a fortune now.
Right.
But anyway, I sold it, and we both had 55 Chevy. She had a 55 Chevy convertible, and I had a two-door sedan. And
okay.
So
and then the drag racing kind of stopped when you got married?
Oh, yes, drag racing stopped altogether. See, like I had a Goodyear tire store.
Right.
Goodyear tires, and I sold Michelin and other things, but basically it was a Goodyear tire store, and I did Goodyear tires and mufflers.
Okay.
And then I did to fill in some, I did put straight front axles under cars and lift suspension under the back. I did hot rod things while I had that store, but it wasn't a hot rod shop.
Right.
And anyway, I just did that, and it was going along fine. I did that for 11 years, almost 11 years.
And you didn't really drag race during that time too much?
Yes, I built a drag race car.
Okay.
I think you go through those pictures that we run on that thing. There's pictures of my little Angula.
Okay.
I'd go out on Sunday afternoon. Say, we only live 7 miles from Lions Drag Strip.
So it was easy to do.
Oh, yeah, it was just so easy. Just had a little single axle trailer, hook it on the back of one of my shop pickup trucks, and oh, yeah, I did that. I did that with my neighbor. When I first got married, I lived in a duplex, and him and I decided, let's go drag racing. And we built that Angula because it was in the old part of town, and the garages were so small. If you got a 55 Chevy in there, you couldn't even walk around it.
So you had to get a small car.
Yeah, we found this Angula and built this little Angula. But I did that, and that was just a fun thing.
Okay.
We took it out, and we'd bracket race it on a Saturday night or something. And then at Lions, they had class racing on Sunday. A gas, B gas, things like that.
And then you moved, but as yet that moved along, you had that store for 11 years. What kind of came after that? Was that when you got more serious about drag racing?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I was, the way I even got into serious racing was one of my best friends was a pool guy. He cleaned pools and that, and he would stop by my shop every morning and drink some coffee with us. And he was racing what was called an injected funny car.
Okay.
They ran on gasoline and they were injected. And a couple times he got me to go to the race with him. And I'd gone, like, that thing's got to have the motor closer to the rear end. Like you're just, you're losing so much ET.
Right.
But to do that right, you're going to have to get the crankshaft lower. You're going to have to get the front of that motor down lower, because when you get it back that far, it's going to carry the front end too bad.
Right.
That's, you got to have that to, that's just. So one day he goes, hey, stop in tonight. He had a pool, and our kids would go up there, and
right.
we'd barbecue and go swimming and stuff. And he goes, yeah, stop by the house tonight. They're going to be barbecuing. So he's kind of watching for me to come. And when I get there, them old California cheap doors that flipped up like this, I come driving in the driveway, boy, and he opens the door, and here sits a car that has the engine where I said we need to have this in, where it should be. And so he talks me into going racing with him. Let's do this together. And so I'd built enough street rods and that stuff. I'd made enough money I could afford to do it. And it was, that first car was the only thing that I raced from then on ever that I bought an engine for.
Really?
I just built it from my.
Right.
So him and I bought that chassis, and bought an engine, and then we decided, okay, we're both going to drive, and we flip a coin, because you had to make a couple laps with the car before you could go to one of the meets. We had anywhere from 32 to about 40 members of this injected funny car thing.
Okay.
So if you wanted to be one of the 8 cars, you needed to
race your way in.
So we went out to Lyons on a Friday night, or on a Wednesday night, and we were going to run it, and he won the flip. So whoever drives it Wednesday night is going to have to be the driver on Saturday. So he goes to drive the car won't handle. It just won't handle. And he was, to me, I was watching from the starting line, and I'm going, you're jerking the wheel, you're doing this, you're shifting when you're doing that, you're doing this and doing. No, this car just won't handle. So I said, let me try it once. Because I'd been racing that Angular, which was really a hard car to drive, and I drove it, and it just went right down through there. So he got enough confidence that this thing will work. And we go to our first race, which was at Fontana, California, and we won. But we weren't the quick car. It's just that Bud was so slow on the tree and the tree was messed up, and everyone we raced red lighted.
Oh my goodness.
We weren't quick, but we won. But him and I raced that thing. Out there we could race every weekend. We raced as much as 3 times in a weekend.
Okay.
But what happened was we'd be runner-up, and we'd be semi-finalist and things like that. And I'd go, Bud, this is not working. Me, I put that much work, we take the car home. We always kept it at my place, at my home, not my shop. And then we have to change oil and run the valves and do all these things and then load it up. And I go, there's so much work in that when we get the races, I want to win. Right. Like when that car's at home, I want to work on it. I want to try this, and I want to try that, and I want to do something to try and make it go faster. And this is not working out because you're having fun. You're going to the race and you're sitting around drinking beer with your buddies, and to me, that's not it. I'm here to race. So when I go to the race, I want to win. I said, what we need to do is we need to, this is going to turn into a Marty story, old Marty like. So anyway, one of us has got to buy the other one out. So I said, this is a good running car. Everything is fine. And I sold him my half of the car. And then I bought another used chassis, and I raced that. The only trouble was the first thing, the first out of town race we went, which was the second time that I'd run the car, the guys didn't hook the body right. And these cars in 1970 along in there, they used to fly. You know, they weren't all this aerodynamic stuff like they have now, and the wind would get under them and they would take off. And so we're at Las Vegas, the old track, old Stardust, and it had didn't have lights worth a dang. And the guy two guys didn't hook the body right, put the body down, and I go hauling butt down through there, and the wind gets just right, and it got under the body, and it brought the body up enough that the back of the body got into the tires, and it ripped it off and full vaulted that baby, you know, and it goes way the heck up in the air. And my poor wife thinks, oh my God, he's dead.
He's up there flying.
This is it for him. And I'm going to finish this with a cuss word. But anyway, it's dark now at the finish line. And she assumes that I am hurt because she just thinks I went up there. Well, I didn't go up there. I was down here, and she's running down the track. Oh God, you know. And she hears, son of a... I guess he's okay.
She could hear you cussing down there.
But anyway, I no more than ran that car, and I had all these ideas on how to build a car. So then I built my first car, and that was a Vega. That was 1972.
Those were actually some pretty, a lot of drag cars got built out of those things.
Yep, and
they weren't worth a damn as a passenger car.
You couldn't approve it by me. I loved them. But we built this thing, or I guess I built this thing, and we go to the first race, and I had an international, a 1-ton international that was originally a mattress hauling truck, and it was real low, and that's what I hauled my race car on. Had these great big long aluminum ramps. And we go to the first race.
You took the box off, the enclosed box.
Well, it never had a box. It had a chain thing around. This was California.
Yeah.
So they had, you know, it didn't even have a box on it.
Yeah.
So I just cut all that off, the thing that went up over the cab and everything. And I just had these long ramps, and we go to the first race out with this brand new car, pretty much different from everything that was out there then, and we win. Yeah, boy, all these friends, oh, this is really great. And we go and we shove that car up on the trailer, up on the back of that truck. And then the next week we go out, gee whiz, wow, won again. And all these guys helping me, and I'm the greatest thing on earth. And then after about the third week in a row where I won, it was like, a few of my really good friends were helping. And then about the fourth time I won in a row, it was like, go get some spectators.
We need help load the car.
My friends went down, and we had to get spectators to load that thing up. But those were good days. I loved that.
That's the way it works when you start winning.
Yep.
You lose friends really fast.
Yep.
You've seen that in all kinds of motorsports, I'm sure, over the years.
Yep. It was really obvious there, because we went from the greatest guy on earth, oh, wow, built that chassis himself, did all that, to he ain't helping that guy.
So you raced that one, and then you moved on, just keep timelines kind of moving. You ended up with Funny Car, though.
Yeah, that was a funny car.
That was a funny car.
Oh, yeah.
And then you ran that, and then you raced that for quite a few years?
Well, see, I built a new one every year.
Okay.
I would sell that car, and I would have some idea how I wanted to make the next one. I learned enough that I had 6 Vegas.
Okay.
You know, everyone thought, you raced a Vega funny car. No, I raced 6. I had 6 different ones.
You kept the body, or you
No, I sold the whole thing. That was the unfortunate thing with me racing. I never had the money where I could just park that and get another one. I always sold that car. It worked good. I'd sell that car for good money, and
that's what you used to build the next one.
And when I first raced, we made really good money. We got paid really good, and these are Chevy motors, and I could go and buy a Chevy block. I could buy a Chevy block for $158.
Wow.
I was sponsored by Gledhill Chevrolet, and whatever the parts department paid for the parts, that's what my sponsorship was.
Okay.
So I used cast iron Chevrolet heads. I used 454 Chevy cranks, and I used a cast iron block. I could build a motor with the cam and the oil pump and all that, the gear drive. I could build a motor for $600.
Oh, wow.
So I would, I never run one more than a half a year.
Yeah.
I would just build a new one, and sell that one, and then.
It was a way to make some money too while you're doing it.
Well, I was making money with a car. See,
Right.
it was so cheap.
Off the earnings.
Yeah, it was so cheap to run the car. We paid 45 cents a gallon or so for gas, and running all those stock, running that kind of stock Chevy parts.
Yeah.
Like I come up with this idea on, like nowadays they have Lenco 3-speed and 4-speed transmissions.
Right.
Well, they never had such a thing. And we had torque flights and Hydromat Chevrolet Turbo 400s.
Yes.
We had things like that, which had really low gears in them. By then we were running injected alcohol.
Right.
We went from injected gas to alcohol, and it was geared too low. So I had to be too careful in low gear. And I went to this Leonard Abbott who owned Lenco, and I said, if we did this and this, we could take two of those 2-speeds that you make and hook them together, we could wind up with a 3-speed transmission. He goes, now it can. So I got together with him 2 or 3 times and finally decided, okay. He said, I'll do it. He said, I'm going to charge you for a 2-speed, and then I'm going to charge you for a 2-speed with a reverser, and all this stuff that it takes to hook this together, and everything it's going to take to do it, I'll just do it for nothing, just to see how this thing works out. But you take this part and that part and that part, that's going to be $1,600. And he said, no one will ever buy them. Well, now they're $8,000, and now that's what they all have.
Right.
But anyway, there wasn't such a thing then. And so I went home and I had that international flatbed, and I parked that thing out in front of my shop, and I wrote $1,600 on the window, so I took that $1,600, buy that transmission.
How'd you haul the car then?
Well, I had a friend that had a ramp truck, and he just let me use his truck.
Okay.
And then I built that winter, I built a ramp truck.
Okay.
I bought a 3/4 ton Chevrolet pickup cabin chassis. It had no bed on it.
Right.
And I lengthened the frame and the drive shaft. I did all that, and I made it real light. I made it like unit construction. I made it so the boxes and the bed, helped support the frame,
Right.
and the frame helped support the boxes. And anyway, it was a real light thing. And in those days, like a lot of the time I wouldn't go to bed every other day. I would work all day, all night, all day, and then that night I'd go to bed. But like when I was trying to get something done, I just worked every other day. I didn't go to bed.
Because once you get focused on it, just another thing with the way your mind works.
Determined. So it was New Year's, I was building this dang ramp truck, and with my tire store, you have those big aluminum doors that tip up like this.
Right.
And so I'm exhausted, and I'm finishing up putting the 11 whatever gauge steel it was I had on the top, and I'm working all by myself, and I got to get this thing slid up on there. And the first thing you know, my feet slid, and I went down on the shop floor, and I was so exhausted I couldn't get up. And so this is like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. The doors were open. Someone could have walked in, stole the money out of the door. They could have done anything they wanted, because I was so exhausted.
You just fell asleep right there on the floor.
I couldn't get up, and I just laid there, and that was it. But anyway, I got that truck done, and the reason that the reason that people built ramp trucks in those days is if you went down the road with a truck and a pickup and a trailer, you had to drive in the right lane, and it was 55 miles an hour. But if you only had 2 axles, away you go. And most of the states out on the west didn't have speed limits.
So you go as fast
So
as...
you could just go out there and go like a son of a gun if you had just 2 axles.
Right.
And that was all before they come up with that 55 mile an hour speed limit in the late 70s to keep gas
down when the
yeah. So anyway, most racers that traveled, like we traveled to Idaho, Washington, Nevada, Arizona. We traveled into Texas, and so we did a lot of driving, and it was worthwhile to go 80 or 85 or whatever.
Right. Whatever you could.
Yep.
And then once you got finished with the Vegas, what was the next step for you?
Well, I had, I ran an injected gas funny car.
Okay.
And then I ran an injected alcohol funny car. And then I ran a injected gas, injected alcohol, injected nitro, and then our whole group went to blown alcohol. So I raced a blown alcohol funny car.
And what were your top speeds back then in the quarter mile?
Let's see. I know for quite a while we had the record at 2:15:30.
And you held that record?
Yep.
Okay.
And,
so one thing that's consistent is you were always inventing new things and pushing the sport along. And being in California, I mean, everybody knows of a lot of the big names. You probably ended up at the track with a lot of those guys too, like Force and Snake and all those guys. So did you personally get to know some of those guys out there?
Yeah, unfortunately. No, hell no. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What got you? So you raced when you were running the blowing alcohol. Was that kind of when you wound up the drag racing?
I was a serious racer then.
Yeah.
And what happened?
And were you racing full time at that point?
I was in 1974. Like my shop was on Pacific Coast Highway at 190th and Pacific Avenue, and it was a really big intersection. And it wasn't that big then, but they had to make it into a great big intersection. And so they public domain put my butt out of business. And, like then, I know exactly what I ran then because we held both ends of the record at 2:03:61 and 6:99.
Oh,
so
wow.
That, that was bad ass in those days.
Yeah.
And so when they, forced me out of business, I decided, let's just race. We would only go to a few, like we might come back east and go to the Gator Nationals or the Spring Nationals or something. Why don't we just do that? Let's spend the summer doing that. And so I had a friend that had a business making fire hoses, and I would go and I would weld his fire hoses, and I would do that like once a month. I'd go for 3 or 4 days and weld these fire, but that's all I did. And outside of that, I was racing. I just raced the cars.
And you were earning enough money off of your winnings.
Oh yeah, we could live off of the car.
Live off of that.
Plus, like the car always ran good, and I could sell it for really good money. So every year until 1978, I built a new car.
Sell it to somebody else and just keep right on
That's
going.
why I said I had 6 different Vegas. People think, oh yeah, you raced a Vega. No, I raced 6 of them. They were all different.
Right.
And if you look at the pictures on it, you can see the difference in every one.
So 78 rolls around and that kind of wrapped up that era? Or was that when the station left and you went full time?
Well, 74, that was the end of the tire store, and that's when I started racing all the time.
Okay, and how long did you do that?
Well, 75, that's when we were going to go on the road and run all the national events, which we didn't make all of them, but we pretty much did. We came back east because in those days, all the national events were on the East Coast, except the Winter Nationals and the World Finals.
Okay.
You know, they were all Indy, Englishtown, Montreal, you know, places like that, Florida. So we came back here for the summer. Mom, me, and Rona and the kids. And we lived at my sister's house out here in Seville.
Okay.
And we spent the summer here. And then we kind of decided, you know, this is a pretty good place to raise the kids. Why don't we just come back here? So it was so easy to do. My neighbor said, you know, if you ever sold your house, this is out in California, if you ever sold it, I'd like to buy it. It'd be a good place for my mother. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to call him. And I called him and I said, you know, as you know, I paid $26,000 for this house. You give me 52 and you can have it. That was it. We had no realtor, no nothing. He owned the house, and we bought a house here in town, and that was it. We
moved back.
We've been back here ever since. Yep.
And what year was that when that happened?
That was 1975.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we were sponsored by Revell.
Okay.
Yep.
And that helped cover some of the costs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything. So when you moved back here, you kept full-time racing.
Well, see, when I was full-time NHI racing, I was under the assumption that if I won a national event, if I won one of those Wallies, that would have you set. Boy, you are done. You know, like that's got to be, you know, you're going to have a lot of money and do all that. Well, in 1975, I won 3 in 75.
Okay.
And in 1976, I believe there was only 9 NHRA national events, and I won 6 of them.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the year, I was broke. You know, I spent it all. You know, it was like, this ain't happening.
Yeah.
So I just decided I quit. Yeah, I had enough. So
and that's when you quit drag racing.
That's when I quit drag racing, the end of 1976. And
you were broke, and that doesn't make it too much fun anymore.
Well, see, what I did is always made sure, and this is a thing that I told my wife, I will always own enough stuff to pay all the bills. We will never go bankrupt.
Okay.
You know, we might get down to 0, but I am gonna, you know, when I get to the point where I only own enough stuff to pay all my bills, then I quit.
Okay.
So I wasn't broke, but I quit.
Right, but I mean,
I quit, and I realized, you know, you can win a lot, you're not gonna, you just spend more.
You can spend more to keep winning. And
so I bought a dang truck.
There's a price to pay to be on top sometimes.
Well, I bought the semi, and I decided I was gonna be a steel hauler. In 1976 winter was pretty bad, and I got stuck up on, I didn't actually get stuck. I got blocked in, you know, where you couldn't move in this snowstorm at the turnpike and 280 up there by Toledo. And like I told this story before, I laid there in that damn motel floor because there was just trucks everywhere. All the freeways were shut down, including the turnpike. And I'm laying there on the damn floor on a mattress with 3 other guys that I never seen before in my life. There's a little snow blowing under the door, and I'm going, maybe they're right. People used to say, the worst day at the drag races is better than the best day at your job. So I decided, I'm going racing again. Well, and then this is the story. So NHRA, they found out I was going to go drag racing again. And in 73, I come up with this way of building an injected nitro car that was different than the way people were doing it then. And I did it in kind of a protest because we raced funny cars against dragsters heads up.
Oh.
And it wasn't fair, no way on earth. But anyway, so I had this idea how to build a car, and this friend of mine that had a chassis shop, he goes, you run the thing, you build the motor and run the thing, I'll give you a chassis. And you use that chassis until you want to park it, and then I'll take it back.
Right.
So he built a chassis, and I kind of proved a point. That thing went out, and it set a record. And anyway, when I quit racing, that was 70. Now we were into 74, 73,
Okay.
70. So now in 76, when I won all those races, I decided, I think I'll run a funny car. I'll run a dragster.
Right.
And so when NHRA found out I was going to do it, they put a thing in there and they said, Ken Veney's thinking of, is going to run a dragster like Dave Settles. And it was like, I just said, I built a damn Ford before I'd do something like someone else. Well, let's do that. So I built a Ford dragster. I built the motor, and a friend around here that wanted me to keep racing, he come up with a chassis, and I built the motor, and we raced a 351 Cleveland Ford. I mean, it was the only one ever, because everything was homemade. We made the manifold and the run the mag off the end of the crank and the fuel pump. And anyway, we built all that stuff, and it was kind of fun, but it was too weak. We won the Summer Nationals with it, runner-up at Indy, and it won some points meets, but it was too weak.
Right.
The motor, it was all NASCAR stuff that was actually sponsored by Jack Roush.
Oh, really?
He gave me they called them Australian block.
Right.
And he gave me the block and the crank, and
yeah, because in the 70s, he would have just been coming into NASCAR.
Yep, he was a drag racer.
That's
knew him quite well.
Yep. He did a lot of rally car stuff too.
The only thing he wanted is he was interested in his project, and the only thing he wanted was he gave me those parts and pay him if I ever sold them.
Oh, okay.
If I sold the block and So anyway, I ran that Ford. It was fun for a little bit, and then I decided to. Okay, I'm going to build 1977. That was 77. 1978, I'm going to build me an alcohol funny car. So it was kind of hard to do because I built it on this friend of mine's jig out in California. So I went out there for a few weeks and put this car together. And I really didn't have any money. And there was another guy, a friend of mine, Dave Sebring. He wanted me to keep racing, and this guy did, and that guy. And so this guy gave me a crank, and that guy gave me a block. So I'm out there, and we go to the first race. The absolute first race we go to is the Sports Nationals in Bowling Green. We go there and win.
Oh,
holy cow. And then I go to the next race, and that was, I went to a points meet at Indy. Indianapolis had a points meet. I went there for that, and then we went to the Spring Nationals, and this guy stroked me around on the starting line, and that thing got really hot. He wouldn't stage, and they had different timing than they do now, and he wouldn't stage, and I'm sitting there with my motor loaded on the clutch, and it got really hot, and I cracked a head, and I didn't even own them. That's when I go, oh, shoot. I not only got to replace his head, I don't have any. And so I tried all around to get heads made out of better material. They were all made out of the same dang thing, 350, or not three, I forget. Anyway, I call this guy that I knew that worked at.
And those were steel heads, cast heads.
Then on the Hemi, they were steel until 1977 or 78. When I went back to racing funny cars again, steel heads were all cracked and junk, and everyone was running aluminum. And the aluminum head is what I cracked.
Okay.
And I called this Dave Kofel, worked at Chrysler Corporation. He was a metallurgist. And I said, I need a casting that's stronger than 356 T6. That's the number I just remembered. And he said, well, I don't know anything like that. He said, I'll check into it, see what I can find. And he calls back in a few days and he goes, there isn't such a thing. That is the strongest casting you could get a head cast from. I said, geez, it's got to be something better than that. Now I've gone from a Chevy to a Hemi so I could get a stronger block. Now I've got a head that won't hold up. And he said, the only thing that's stronger is plate. I go, plate? Plate? So I was making all kinds of little parts that I was selling to other drag racers. Like I'd take a whole bunch of these that I made and a whole bunch of those, just little things. I kept, not that I was an inventor, I was making better things for my car, and so I just sell them. You know, I mean, it was incredible how much stuff I sold. So where I was getting all this scrap was this aluminum place in Akron, and I go there and I go, "You ever have any scrap that would be this size?" No. They looked around, no. They said, "You know, we've got some remnants that's this size, and if we cut it here and cut it here, we could call it scrap, and it'll be in the scrap pile." So I go to their scrap pile in a couple days, and I get these 2 chunks of aluminum, and I started whittling on, I was never made it as a machinist, you know, I just made little pieces, and I started cutting on these things, and the first thing you know, I made these heads. And
what, at that point when you were making those heads, what machinery? Would you had a mill at that point?
No, I didn't even have a mill. I was working nights. Like this friend of mine had a 2-car garage, and he worked with his mill and stuff all day long. And then he'd quit at 5, 6 o'clock, and I'd go to work and work there. And then I'd work all night on his machine. And then the next day I'd be doing handwork. And then that night I would, so that was another one of those times where I worked all day, all night, all day. Then, you know, every other day I didn't go to bed. And so I made these heads. And this is a little interesting part about it. Before I made that head, before I made my first billet head, I said, you know, I'm making this thing from scratch. I'm going to try and fix everything that ever went wrong with a head. I won't be able to do it, but I'm going to try.
Right. You got to set a goal if you want to accomplish it.
I'm going to set a goal. That's right. I'm going to make this head flow better air because I'm starting from scratch. I got no water jackets. I got no nothing. I can start wherever. I can make it however I want to make it. So we used to break the ends off of guides. I said, okay, we'll make that guide out of steel. And the seats were cast iron, and they used to crack and fall out. I made seats out of 4130 chromoly. And we used to push head gaskets out. I'm going to make this head so I don't even have a head gasket. We're going to bolt this head right on the block. That was pretty outrageous, but
Did it work?
That's how I tried. Anyway, I made this thing, made this pair of heads, and all the ports and everything in it were so big, I had to make the manifold. So I had to make an intake manifold.
Right.
And then I put great big valves in it. The valves were every valve was at least 1/8 of an inch bigger, and I moved them around so that I could get all this stuff in that chamber. And I get them done, and at Bowling Green, Kentucky was the first place that I could run after they got them done. And this is in August. Hot, and the air is so bad in Bowling Green, Kentucky, you can't make any power.
Humidity is incredible.
Oh, it's terrible. And so we go to this dang points meet in Bowling Green, because that was the next race. And we go, I run it 3/4 the way down the track, shut it off, bring it back, check it all over, make another run, set the speed record. So then I go to Indy, and Jerry Gwynn goes, boy, I got to have a set of those. And Joe Amato, well, yeah, I need that. Don Gerardo, Bob Chipper, Bruce Iverson, and someone else. There were 6 people. I got to have some of those heads. So that winter, I bought a used Bridgeport for $2,200. And that winter, I made cylinder heads. And I kept the same car. I didn't sell the car. I just spent the winter making heads. I made the heads and the manifolds, and that started it. $2,200. I was in business. I made all the tools to cut all the things. And
all that happened here at this location?
Oh, no, this happened in my 2-car garage in town.
Okay. So that was your first machine shop, wasn't it? We want to thank Bob Parks with Custom Tire Cutting and the Parks Pullers for supporting the Breaking Barriers podcast. Their product speaks for itself. It has helped us get many wins, as well as many other pullers out there. Check them out and try their product. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for your support at Breaking Barriers Podcast. At Gary Bontrager Consulting, we work a lot with clients who want to work with developing sales systems, mergers and acquisitions, perpetuation planning into the next generation or to another company. We work a lot with systems and processes to facilitate growth, working with tools that'll help you take your business to the next level. For more information, visit us either on Facebook or on our website at www.garybontrager.com.
Yeah, it was a 2-car garage in a nice part of town, decent, at least half decent part of town.
Neighbors had to love that.
The neighbors weren't too enthusiastic. But see, they didn't know it because I had no windows that they could see into my garage, and I would back the trailer in the driveway and the doors are all closed, and I would work. And then at night, I could get the trailer door down and I would open the garage doors and I'd wheel the chips into the trailer and close it all up. They didn't even know what I was doing.
They probably thought you were running a meth lab or something in there.
Yeah, so then I built this. This was just a shell.
Right.
Yeah, because
started working in here.
I had neighbors that they didn't know I was making heads, but they didn't like me backing down the street and backing my trailer in, even though it was all legal. So I built this thing.
Just extra traffic and noise and things.
Pardon?
Just extra traffic and noise.
Well, I come home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I lived at the end of a dead-end street. And so I would have someone walk behind the trailer, make sure that no one was there, no cars, make sure everything was safe, and I would back down the street and then back into the driveway. And they complained about that.
Yeah. So we're looking over here at the bench. You've got some heads sitting over here. Are these based off of some of your early designs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's things there that I did. You know, like I said, I made these heads with no head gasket.
Right. How did that work?
That was 1978, and I ran them with no head gasket until in 1982, I went to a gasket because I built a AA fuel funny car, and I didn't have money for a spare motor. And so what I had is I had 7 sets of sleeves, all bored for each cylinder. Like I had 7 number 1s, 3s, 5s, and 7s. So I didn't have a spare motor, but I could stick those things in. And I was afraid that I was going to get into too many different thicknesses, and I had no cushion. So I needed a gasket.
So you had to do something to...
Yeah, and the gaskets were terrible. And then in 1986, I had these customers for selling Clark, and they ran a blown alcohol dragster, and they decided they wanted gaskets. And so I showed them how bad the gaskets were that were available for these things, the way the different positions were.
Right.
And so they made their own. They made a set because Purcell had EDM machines.
Okay.
And then now they're still in business. You know, they started making gaskets.
For you.
And so they're in business today.
Okay. Interesting. What got you to the point of wrapping up your drag racing for good?
For good? Tractor pulling.
So you just decided to make a switch.
Well, see, after I had my alcohol cars in 78 and 79, then 80, I built a dragster again, only I used a Hemi.
Yep.
And I made this unusual head for that. Then we started selling those. And then I figured there was one thing I always wanted to do, which my wife said, you will never do, and that's race a AA fuel funny car. You're not going to do that. They are way, way too dangerous. So I decided, well, what happened is I won the U.S. Nationals in an alcohol car, and she goes to get the check for the alcohol car, and I won $2,500. And her and Holly Beetle were standing there, and Ray Beetle just won AA fuel funny car, and he got a check for $25,000. And I got one for $2,500. And so she decided, well, if you feel you have to do this before you quit. So we ran, I ran a double A funny car.
You did then run one.
Yep. Well, and that was, I didn't build that chassis.
Okay.
Because I was doing, I was going to build this thing, and when it comes to these solid billet heads, okay, you made them work on alcohol, but they'll never work on nitro.
Right.
They're going to dissipate all this heat and this and that. They'll never work. So I was building this oddball double A fuel funny car. I figured I'd at least have a good chassis. I can't invent a chassis better. I've never done it.
Right.
How can I do something better?
Right.
I just bought the best chassis I could get, and I, bought this double A fuel funny car chassis. And I built the engine with a roller cam, which they never used rollers, and real low compression with a lot of supercharger and a low percentage of nitro to keep all the parts together. And by the fourth time I took it out, we were the NHRA national record holder.
Really?
Yep. We made more runs over 250 than everyone else put together.
Oh my goodness.
And Perdomo set at Indy, Perdomo set the ET record, and I ran the exact same number. But in those days, it was whoever did it first. And so he set he ran 573 on whenever he did it, and then I did it the next day. I did it right after he did.
Oh no.
Today I would have held a record because I ran speed. When I ran that ET, I had a lot of speed with it.
Right.
So we ran that for a year and a half, but it was kind of hard to do. We only had the one motor.
So he was just a little quicker on the tree that day.
No, I went faster.
You went faster than him.
I had more speed.
Right. But they were going off the times, is what you're
right.
saying.
You ran off of ET, and we had both run the same ET.
Okay.
A little story about that. You might get a kick out of this. I always try to get my dad to go to the drag races.
Right.
And Dragway 42 is only about 15 miles from here. And they were holding, NHRA had their national events. Well, the American Hot Rod Association had theirs, Grand Americans. And they have a Grand American out here at Dragway 42. And I go, Dad, you got to go to this. It's only 15 miles. He goes, if you'd race Perdomo or Muldowney, I'd go do that. Well, he didn't know. He just knew those names. He didn't know Muldowney was a dragster. But anyway, if you'd race those guys, I'd do that. So anyway, we get him talked into going out there, and he goes to the drag races, and lo and behold, he goes on Saturday and qualify, and I run off with Perdomo, and I beat him. And I explained to him, this doesn't mean anything, Dad. This is qualifying. We're not racing, we're qualifying. We're going for ET to see who races who. Well, the next week, he was a Pontiac guy. I always had a Pontiac. And I run into this rep that owned the Pontiac dealership, and he goes, your dad was in the other day, and he said, you should have seen the kid. He kicked Perdomo's ass.
He was pretty proud of it.
He never said that to me.
Right.
He said it to
as a father, you
should have seen that.
He was pretty proud of what you accomplished.
Even though it didn't make any difference.
Well,
so we did that for a year and a half.
Right.
And then it was that's it.
So there's a story behind this Wally. What's that story?
That Wally? Well, that is, I had to have my bladder and prostate and all that stuff taken out about 3 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. And so, afterward, I was pretty messed up. And I go to the U.S. Nationals, and Antron Brown, I don't know if you know who he is.
Oh, yeah.
Antron, he's been a good friend for 30 years.
Just seen him in Indy at the PRI show.
Yep,
and he shows up at some tractor pulling stuff.
Yep. Well, we got pictures of him sitting in this thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, he was a pretty good friend, and he knew I wasn't getting around good. And we, being a legend, they have a legends thing at Indy in the tower.
Okay.
And so, Rona and I, we would go in that thing.
Okay.
Because like I say, I was pretty goofed up. I couldn't get around very good. Well, Antron had got a golf cart, and he got a golf cart for me to ride around in. So Sunday night, Indy, you race on Monday.
Right.
Eliminations. So on Sunday night, I'm taking the golf cart back over to his pit area to put it away. And Marty's there with a car to pick me up. So I get in the car, and it's raining like a son of a gun. That goddamn Antron comes out, stands in the rain to BS. And this may be the reason I have that, I'm not sure. But Antron and I, we're standing there, or I'm sitting in the car and he's standing out there and we're talking. And I said some things to him. But his crew chief is a good friend of mine that lives just about 10 miles from here. And, we talk about what's being done with the car and everything. So I have no idea why I have that trophy, that thing from Indy. But that is the one that he got for winning, not an extra one he bought. He brought
that is the original.
That is the original one that he got with every ET slip from that race.
I see the ET slips on it.
Yep. Well, he won the race. I came home. I had all that I could take. And, I was still all screwed up. And so we come home and he wins the dang race. And that was on Monday. And on Tuesday, he went to Washington, D.C. and, in his nice suit and everything, and stood in front of the Senate talking about, keeping some of these rules out there. They have rules where they don't even want you to change your own oil. They don't want you to do anything to a car that could mess up the water stream or something. So, he's there in his nice suit, and he is there representing NHRA and SEMA and all PRI. He's representing all that stuff. And he comes, goes back to Indianapolis on Tuesday night, and then on Wednesday, he drives over here and brings that thing over and gives me the trophy from winning that race. In other words, he needed whatever went on there, something that I did at that race is what made him win, is what they think.
Right.
So that, he was giving me that thing.
Just because he felt you were the one that gave him the drive.
Either that or something on tuning the car, or I think I gave him some inspiration, I think, is the reason that he did it. But I wasn't going to say, why'd you do this? I wanted to say, thank you very much. This is an honor that you would give me your Wally from the U.S. Nationals.
That's pretty amazing.
Yep.
And then as you wrapped up the career in drag racing and you got into tractor pulling and modifieds, how was that transition?
Well, what happened there was I was crew chief for different things. 1 year with Budweiser and 3 years with Coors and 3 or 4 years with Mopar and then the New York Yankees. So I did that. That was keeping me involved in racing, and you could definitely live quite well off of what that paid.
Right.
So
you were just being basically a marketing representative for those groups.
No, I was the crew chief.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I was the one that I was either hero or zero. I'm the guy that made whatever decision was made to that car, that's what the crew chief did.
Doing.
And I was always the only one. We didn't have two crew chiefs. And so I was either good or I was bad.
But did that for some years.
Yeah, I did that all those different years. And then, like after the first thing I did, like after Coors, like I ran a late model dirt car for a little bit.
Okay.
And that was, I had a lot of fun doing that. Track's not too far away, and I just raced at the local dirt track, but it was so dirty that, and I crashed and all that. And my wife didn't like crashing, and she didn't like all the dirt and all that. So that didn't last that long.
Okay.
But then, clear back into 1976, a friend of mine, drag racing friend, like a lot of them used to stay around here because the races were mostly on the East Coast. Well, that guy, he kind of got into tractor pulling. He goes, "I want to take you to a tractor pull. I think you'd like it." So he took me to this state, I don't even know, it was either Ohio State or a brush pull. He took me to this tractor pull. I thought, yeah, that's kind of neat. I might want to do that someday. So then, that ended that though.
Okay.
That was in the 70s. But then, I think it went into the 90s when I started doing stuff for Sassy, for Brian Knox.
I got you.
And what I was doing is we would have guys that would order 10 sets of heads for their fuel cars. In the winter, they'd order 10, and they'd trade these heads in. And then I would recondition these heads, and Brian Knox was building motors with these reconditioned Kenny Bernstein or whoever, Darrell Gwynn or whatever, with these used heads. So that got me involved in tractor pulling. I got to know Brian Knox real good, and he would come to the races and kind of hang around the trailer a little bit to see what I was doing. And so he goes, "Boy, what you need a two-wheel drive truck. That'd be..." Well, in the meantime, I got to know this guy quite well, Wayne Roush.
Oh, okay.
And Wayne Roush came by here, brought his truck. He was going somewhere. He'd come by just from Columbus up to here. He was on his way somewhere, and he called and wanted to know if I was going to be around. And he stopped by to show me his two-wheel drive truck. And he's going, "Yeah, this is you. You need to have this." And so I kept thinking about it. And then Brian Knox, he goes, "You need a Mini. That Mini, that's you. You need a Mini." So I bought a chassis from Roger Wyson, and I built this motor that was like a drag racing motor. It was maybe a little excessive in horsepower for those days, 1993, I think, or 94, 93. Anyway, I built this thing, and it was so new that the engine had never started the engine. And I'd welded this tractor puller guy's block from around here. And so he said, "I'll take your tractor to Toma." That Toma was coming up. And so he hauled my tractor to Toma, and Ron and I drove up there in the car, and still the engine had never been started. And I'd never been in one of these things. And so we go to start the motor, and the kind of starter bracket that it had in those days, if it gave a little cough, it bent the brackets. So I spent all day trying to get brackets made there in Toma. And they're already running Minis when we get this. Brian Knox helps me start it then. And we get the thing started and shut it off and take it over the scales and get up there. And I'm clueless. I got no idea what I'm doing. And I go down through there and I go, I'm just going to say a number. We'll say 280 feet. And the guys are going, these other pullers are going, "You're going to need to put a different gear in that thing. You need more power." And I go, "Well, I can give them more power." Well, I didn't know how much the gear is they wanted to put in there, and they didn't know how much power I could make. And so I send her down through there, and it rips one wheel just rips every screw out of the tire and spun the tire in the wheel, and I zinged her off to whatever side it was and crashed her down. And so we fixed it, and I had to get rid of some lug. I had too much tire.
Okay. It was hooking up too hard.
Yep, it was hooking up way too hard. This shell font from around here, he goes, "I'll make you a winner." He said, "I'll give you an old junk set of tires I got. They'll work good on there." And he did, and it worked really good.
So you just had a lot more power than the rest of the guys
at
did.
that time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
we went, they only had 7 pulls that year.
Oh, okay.
So there was only 7 mini pulls that I could go to. And that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough fun. So we get looking it over and we start counting them up. OSTPA, NTPA, and HRA or ATPA, or whatever it was at the time. We could start counting them up. hell, we could go to 58 poles here in Ohio with a modified.
Right.
So I buy this old modified from a guy right here in Medina, Sandman. It's got a Chevy and a power glide in it, and I put a Hemi in it, and I have a single motor Hemi racing Ohio State. And it was kind of fun, but it was pretty hard to do anything with one motor and against the three. Anyway, that was kind of fun. So I decided I'm going to build a modified. So that was 1995, and so we started to build this modified. And
did you build the chassis too?
Yeah, yep.
While we're talking about the chassis, one thing I'd like to, sitting behind us is a frame table.
Yep.
That you've built, because you use that then to build a lot of the drag cars.
Yep.
And then you probably used it for the modified as well.
Yep. I didn't actually do that much on that frame jig because it was so big. I built some of that stuff on 2 Bridgeports.
Okay.
So I could get it to the height that I could work on it. I had 2 Bridgeports sitting facing each other and cranking the tables up for the 2. And like when I built those modifieds, they were totally bolted together.
Okay.
There was nothing welded to the frame rail. It was bolted. But anyway, we go to build that modified, the first one that we were going to build, and we get part way along, and Gwyn's, they were having trouble. They were burning up their top fuel car, and it wasn't going quick, and so Daryl talked me into coming back for 2 races just to see if we could get this thing going down the track without hurting it. Well, so now this is 1996, and I go to 2 races, and we run good, and it don't hurt parts. And they talk me into staying for the year, and then the next year, and the next year. And the first thing you know, it's 2000. And our Mopar deal was up at the end of 2000, so I decided, okay, this is it. We're finishing that tractor. So we finished up that modified in the year 2000. But that year we also, this thing come along, if Mike Dunn would drive and Gwynn would own the car and I would tune it, Steinbrenner was going to give us big money, New York Yankees.
Okay.
And we never really had big money.
Right.
So I did that, but I also ran the car, the dragster,
the modified, yeah.
Yeah, the Funny Farm Mall is what I ran.
Right.
And the Funny Farm Mall, I should tell you that, the Funny Farm Mall came along from funny cars were a bunch of tubing with a fiberglass body that looked like a certain car. Funny car.
Right.
So my wife said, you want to build a dang old tractor, you go ahead and build your dang old tractor. But if you're going to rent a tractor, it's got to look like a tractor. Period. So when I thought, well, I'll build I'm an old farm mall lover.
Right.
And I thought, I'll make it like a 1066 because I can get a great big fuel tank in it.
Right.
And I wanted a big fuel tank on the front. So I made that thing out of 1/8-inch aluminum and plate, machined it all out and made it. And so we had the Funny Farm Mall.
And it looked like the front end of a tractor.
Yeah, well, I had side panels, and I made a dashboard that comes up like this, just like a 1066 would have. Yeah, I made all that out of 1/8-inch, formed it, and it was
and you built it, and you did all the sheet metal work yourself.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep.
So that's where the Funny Farm Mall came from.
Yep. We did.
Interesting. What an iconic tractor that was.
It was a great tractor. That was my wife's favorite tractor.
I imagine so.
She just loved that tractor. She didn't care about tractor pulling, but when I built that tractor, then she just loved it. She just she went back to like backing me up like she used to back me up with the funny cars and all that stuff. And she loved that tractor. I will
say that's where Rona became iconic, probably when you'd back him up to the track and then you'd run down the track. I think people were rather watch her than you.
and it was, why? I don't know.
Well, it was a good show. You guys were good at showmanship. I mean, you guys
now that's a thing that a lot of people never realize. When we're out there pulling, we got to put on a show.
100%.
Because if there's no show, they're You know, people don't necessarily care about a bunch of tubing with an engine.
No.
But they care about being entertained.
Yes.
And funny cars, no matter what it is, you've got to put on, you know, you need to put on a show to keep the spectators.
And that's one thing I think with drag racing that intrigues a lot of people. And I can tell you it's one reason I like to watch these little things. Now, you've got them to where they're a lot more consistent, but you never knew when they were going to flip over and what was going to happen when they came down the track. But the fact is, we need to be aware of that if we're going to grow the sport of tractor pulling or drag racing.
Right.
It's a show you're putting on, and each person has basically a personality and a character that meshes with people, and it's necessary to have that to put people in the stands.
And when you're out there putting on a show, your competitors may not put you on the top of the list for them, but the spectators like it, and the spectators are very important.
They are. That's the only reason we can do what we do.
That's right.
So, the other thing I want to touch on, you've brought up your wife, or Rona. I always like to ask people this question, and I'm going to probably put you a little bit on the spot with this maybe, but it seems like she was always supportive of everything you did, and it seems like the two of you had a pretty unique relationship. I'm going to just ask you this, I guess, and so now you have to answer it correctly or you're going to be in the doghouse. What's one of the best things you ever did in life?
What was well, for sure, getting married. You know, it wasn't that she was the only girl I could go with, and I'm sure I wasn't the only guy.
Right.
But us two getting together was the best thing that could have happened.
Because she seemed to really support you in your workaholic ways. And
she accepted that.
And took care of the kids and made sure that all the behind the scenes things were coming together.
Yeah, she didn't have anything to do with drag racing until, like I say, we live so close to Lions Drag Strip that we would go down there and watch races sometimes. And usually they put on a lot of big shows, funny cars and dragsters, and usually they took someone out of there in an ambulance.
Okay.
Whether it was a fire or a crash or whatever. And so she didn't want me having anything to do with that. So she also knew that when I decided I was going to do something, I was pretty much going to do it. And so she decided that's when she started going to the races when I ran the funny car. So we kind of gave her a job, and the job that she did, I don't think people even realize it today, but there was madness to how she did this. Like, you know, they do one hand this and all that. Well, that can get to be confusing.
Right.
Well, see, I had her do it with two hands, and she would hold her hands up like this. And then if we needed to go over that way, she'd go over that way. Well, do we need to go over that way a foot, 4 inches, or what do we need? So I had her hold her hands like that. If we needed to move that thing over, if I needed to be over like 6 inches, and I could tell about where I was on the track, and she would hold her hands about like that, I knew how much to try and get that car over. I don't think people ever realized
there truly was a method.
Right. It wasn't just backing it up. She was getting me, you know, the person in back was telling her what to do, and she was getting me that distance I ought to move over.
I really like that idea. I just learned something, because sometimes when you're backing in there, you can't see anything.
No.
And you're like, you know, they try to tip it further, but yeah,
like when we match raced, when that was all we did living out there in California, we'd back up 70, 80 mile an hour. Everything was putting on a show. We'd have transmission, we put it in third gear and back up real fast. But when you get back near the starting line, then you slow down and that person would come out and do that.
Right.
So we, you know, the whole thing was a show, start to finish.
Right.
And if you win, that's good. Like me, I needed to win, but I also knew that we needed to be putting on a show.
Right. So early 2000s, you started with the Funny Farmall.
Yep.
How long did you campaign that thing?
We campaigned that. What we did is I discovered my mom liked this. My mom was in her 90s, and she liked this. Yeah, she went to assisted living because my dad had died, and she, like she could go back after we'd go pulling and talk to her friends the next day.
Right.
And she loved it. She just loved it. That's why I had that little red trailer and a pickup, because it was easy for my mom to get into it.
Okay.
So but we couldn't be gone anywhere because she was in her 90s. She needed to get home. So we would never go. I mean, when she'd go pulling with us, we go maybe 50, 60 miles. We didn't go very far. Well, we might have went 100, but we never pulled. Other than Bowling Green was the only track that we pulled at that was more than 100 miles. Okay. And that's like 120. So we pulled that. Like I'd come home from a drag race and it'd be Monday night or something. I'd go, where's the tractor pull? So Tuesday after work, we'd load it up and we'd go to Mansfield or we'd go wherever we were going, and then we could be home that night.
Right.
So we pulled all around and whatever, brush pulling, whatever it was, we pulled that was local. So we could go, and we used to say, we got to pull close enough to home so we can get home before the ice cream store closes. So anyway, we did all this real local stuff, 100 miles.
Okay.
And anyway.
You never really did go run NTPA and run the national
No, we went to,
with that
actually,
tractor.
When we were a legal state modified tractor, we won Bowling Green one year. We went there and just happened to have a perfect combination and, not too much power. We went there and everything was just right and we happened to win. But after a few years, we started going to Bowling Green. But
so
I think about maybe 2006, something like that. Somewhere along in there, we started going to some, like we go to Henry, Illinois, not with my mom, but we went to like Henry, Illinois and Goshen, some of the ATPA stuff. And we went to the the NTPA polls. And like my mom died in 1995 or 2005. So after that, we started going a little bit further. And it wasn't until 2008 we decided enough of this juggling this around, juggling that around. We are going modified pulling. And it was just Mrs. Veney and Mr. Veney. We went NTPA modified pulling. And we won the goddamn points. And it was just the two of us loading and unloading this thing. And then we'd get to the pool and we'd have to there'd be Rick Peters or Bill Hurt or someone would come over and start the tractor for us. And we won the damn points.
So I was wondering if you had success in that when you went modified pulling, because you'd wanted everything else to that point. And the engines you were running were probably motors you were putting together.
Oh, yeah.
And
improving. We built definitely. Like I've had to build my own stuff. And along in there, we started about 2002, 3, something like that. We started building motors for other people. We do 20 motors a year. Every winter we do 20 motors. Some of them were rebuilds but it had to be engines we built. Like we always built all the Joe Eaters, and we used to build Steve Bunnages.
Okay.
In let's see.
But you're still building about 20 a year.
No, I don't build any.
You don't anymore.
No, when I quit, when I had to have my bladder out, I just quit everything.
That was done.
That was it.
And then is that when the mod went?
What did I have when I quit?
No, when you decided, when you had your health issues, is that when the modified tractor went too?
No, I was.
You hung on to that yet through that.
See, my modified was really hard to work on because I wanted these engines really close together. And most modifieds have, when they're side by side, they're 43 inches. Well, I made wooden gearboxes and figured out a way I could get all these together at 33 inches. So they were so close together, which I wanted it more like my 3-motor tractor. I wanted
Right.
that weight in the middle, not hanging out
Right.
here. But it made it really hard to work on.
Okay.
Get to the inside of that motor and then get down in there, and I was 80 years old.
Right.
Or, well, no, I was 78 or something,
Yeah,
something like
but,
that.
yeah.
It was just too hard. It was too
Okay.
hard for me to work on that unlimited.
Okay.
But-
And the other question I'm wondering, out of all the years of drag racing and working with like frame flex and things like that, did you take
Working with what?
like frames twisting and
yeah.
flexing, did you take that into account when you built the mod?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I did. I didn't, I built my own modified, not that I knew. Well, I just knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to get that thing to work. So when I built my modified, I built it just like a truck.
Okay.
Trucks have things bolted to the frame, but you can see the old tractor, she's out there and twist up like that. Well, I wanted my tractor to be able to do the same thing. I wanted that rear end flopping around, and it didn't have to drag the motor with it. It could do whatever
Right.
it wanted to do. And so everything on it, that thing, I don't know, it must have 500 bolts in it. But the roll cage, the rear end, everything was bolted. And that one had the engines in a cradle, pivoting in the front, in the middle, and then, so it was like a big old truck, and it worked pretty good. And then when I built that Unlimited, that's the one Chuck Knapp won all those, championships with. That thing, I built that so it could do the same thing, but I had Agnel pipes, tubing
Right.
that was threaded that I could adjust it, trying to figure out which way the chassis worked the best.
Okay. So
But it was like, once I pulled, when I first built that tractor, the one that Chuck had, like I pulled PPL, Ohio, or NTPA, and I pulled modified and unlimited. And so I'd be out there with 4 motors, but only have 3 blowers on it, to get some weight off of the back,
yeah.
But, it worked pretty good. But then when I decided, I built this thing to be an unlimited tractor. We're going to just run unlimited.
Right.
So we did that 1 year, 2012. And then I quit fiddling with adjusting the chassis because, the thing worked halfway decent the way it was, so I just left it.
Right.
But then Chuck ran it the same way. But we went that one year, 2012, we run nothing but unlimited. And then we won the points.
Okay. So how many points championships did you win with modifieds?
I won 1 in modified, 1 in unlimited.
Okay.
Then I think
then
we
what
won
about-
2.
Then
I
what
think we won 2 with
this
this.
one? And then
In mini.
in mini, right. So when the modified went, about what year did you bring this thing along?
Well, my first mini, I had that one in 93 for 1 year. But then the next one I had, a guy here in Ohio built, was a pretty good deal. Shucks. Okay, I built that in 13 because I won the points in modified or in unlimited, and then I sold that to Chuck.
Okay.
And then 13, I had my first mini,
Okay.
and I ran that. And I ran that till like 2016 or something, 17, 16, somewhere along in there. And like I say, I bought this thing from the Europeans or the Netherlands, Barry and Bettis Boer. And
so you didn't build this chassis?
No, I didn't build this. And I didn't build the mini I had in 2013 either. I didn't build either mini. I never built a mini, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
My first one was Wyson. Roger Wyson built that.
Okay. And then but this is your motor.
Yep.
And you run that. And do many others running that motor, or are you primarily the only one?
Nah, pretty much me. Joe Eater runs the same thing. Well, like Russ Nichols.
Yeah.
And Sechrist, when they won the points, they ran it. And Donnie Sullivan with a big stick, when he won that, that champion, like they run it.
So what's the problem? They win with your motor, and then they think they got to get a better mousetrap, but yours is still, because your motors have won quite a few
I remember
championships.
one year we won, I think we won every class that had a supercharger. Modified,
really?
unlimited, mini, two-wheel drive truck. I think we won them all the championships one year.
Wow.
Yep.
Out of,
But-
if you look back over your career in motorsports, what's maybe one of the things you're most proud of?
I'd say probably being man of the year was probably the biggest thing. 1976, they used to have these things. They would have crew chief of the year, sportsman of the year, driver of the year, and things like that. And in 76, I won, this is voted on by all the racing organizations. All the drag, like
Right.
ATPA, IHRA, NHRA, Carcraft Magazine, and the SEMA, all these people, and they give that award to whoever did the most for drag racing. And in 1976, like I won that award.
Did you really?
I had done, and I guess it was because I was an innovator.
Right.
I wasn't I didn't just go invent things. I invented things for me, for my tractor or my drag racing.
Right.
But I'd say that was big.
Yeah.
And
did you get into any Hall of Fames over the years?
yeah, in the world, I'm what do you call that? NHRA
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. Yep. 2008. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm in. I think I'm in the PPL Hall of Fame too.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Oh, congratulations.
Yep.
It says you're going to be inducted into the NTPA Hall of Fame in April.
Yep.
So you've had a very illustrious life and done a lot of things. So that's a great honor to be in those Hall of Fame.
This is the longest I've ever done anything.
This mini?
Yep. Pulling a mini tractor is the longest. It's like this is going to be the last thing I do. And so I kind of hate to give it up.
Right.
But yeah, this is about it.
And it's easy to work on, probably, compared to some of the others.
That what?
It's easy to work on,
Oh, yeah.
I imagine.
Right. That's right.
And if you could do something over, what's something you'd do different?
What could I do different? I would have raced a AA fuel funny car. It's just that I didn't believe. This is one part of it. I didn't think I was good enough.
Okay.
I didn't think that, like these guys are all talented. They all have all this big money and all the motor builders, and I didn't have any of that. And I didn't think I could go and compete with them. And we found out, see, I had different ideas than they did.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say that was.
But looking back, you would have been.
I would have started racing a fuel funny car before that.
Right.
And got a sponsor, and
you'd have been fine.
Yep.
But things happen as they're supposed to.
That's right. I didn't realize I could do that. Yep.
Sometimes others see our potential more than we see it ourselves in the things we accomplish.
Yep.
If out of all the accomplishments you've had, though, are there a few that stand out to you just real quick that you think about in life? And it doesn't need to be racing or tractor pulling, just if you name a few.
I think just, leaving school, not finishing it, even though I'm from an educated, everyone around me had been educated, and just getting through life and making it to 86 years old, and just always, I just always tried hard at whatever I did, and maybe it would be like, gee, I can't do that, but I'm going to give it a try. And
right.
And one thing that I remember as a young guy, I can remember my dad saying, boy, I wish I had done that. Look at so-and-so did that, and look what they're doing. And I decided that ain't going to happen with me. When I think I ought to do that, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
If I think I should do it, I'm going to do it. just like these storage units, very intelligent people telling me, don't do that. Don't do it. There's many storages there sitting around empty and all, don't do it. I'm going to do it.
And it
That's
worked
it.
out.
Yeah, by golly, we're going to do it.
Well,
I think you should, I think trying hard and having, try hard in what it is you're good at.
so give it
then
your
it's
best
not
effort.
like work.
Right.
So
if you were going to give a young person advice today, how would you summarize that?
how would I oh, Jesus.
You've got grandkids, I
You're
suppose.
putting me on the spot. Well, now see, all my grandkids are successful. Like Terry has 4 grandkids. They all graduated from college, and they're all doing something they went to college to do, and they're very successable. Both of my kids.
But do you think that possibly they had a role model that showed
No,
them
I
they should
didn't
work
go-
hard at something?
I didn't go to school. They went
Well,
to.
that doesn't matter. I mean, you still, when you did things in life, you put
I don't know. People say they like to do this because they think that when they do things around me, they learn stuff. And I think I have no idea what I could possibly say to make people learn something. But whatever it is I do, like there's a whole bunch of crew chiefs out there in fuel racing that are guys that started with me, and they just, in watching or whatever, it was something, I don't know, it was something I would do or say or something that stuck in there, it was good training. I don't know.
Well, I guess if I recognize anything, Ken, I see you as a very humble man. You were not afraid to take risks, and I gather it bothers you that you don't have a college education, and I wish it wouldn't.
Yes,
because you've lived such a full life and you've done so many great things, and the inspiration. You just mentioned how many crew chiefs are out there in the NHRA that came through your guidance and worked under you. Some things are caught and they're not taught. And I think you had that ability to work with people, and they could pick up off of you and catch what you were doing and how you approach things. And I know we kind of turn this sometimes, but in my other life, I'm a business consultant and I work with people a lot. So I guess I like to always tie in anything we do in life. And the thing I learned from my father is we can always continue to learn. And so even if you go to college for 4 years, our education should not stop at that point, and yours clearly hasn't. So regardless of the fact that took you till 25 to get a high school diploma, you've never stopped learning. And I can tell when you're working on this, you're still trying to figure out what's something I don't know that we could try and improve. So I guess my challenge is to young people watching this, and when I say young people, 30s, 40s, just really lean into, even whether it be Ken or others, and observe what it is that you guys have done and attributed to the sport. And maybe before we started, growing up without plumbing in a house, and respect those things that people have come through. Sometimes you hear the saying, experience is the best teacher, but we don't always have to learn the hard way, is what I'm trying to tell my kids. And so I appreciate this tremendously. The more I did some research coming into this, I really, this was very exciting for me, because a lot of people have been asking that we sit down with you and do this interview. And there's so much more to Ken and Rona than just a story of tractor pulling. I mean, you've got all the drag racing. And when I look at that, I feel like the experiences you two have had span more than one lifetime. You've really, in comparison to some folks, have lived multiples. And that's very admirable that you could do all that and pack so much in. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
You know what? I was just sitting here thinking, the thing that put this all together was Marty Wilson.
Yes.
Marty Wilson's the one that wanted me to have this interview with you. And I'm sure that when he sees this, he's going to talk about, why didn't you talk about some of the stories? Tell them some stories.
Well, you got one you want to share real quick?
Well, I could, when you say Ken and Rona.
Right.
And Rona, she was always 112 pounds and a little thing. And when I was going to go fuel funny car racing, I got an old 1966 Kenworth and a Kentucky moving van and built me a thing. And I told her, you might be a college-educated school teacher, but you're going to have to learn to drive the truck. You are going to be a truck driver. So I had two guys that helped me with my car, and neither one of them had a license because they were both from Canada. So the one guy that did help me, he was going to go to work for Billy Meyer. So we're in Montreal, and he goes to work for that guy at Montreal. So when we're coming home, this is going to be the first time it'll be those two guys that don't have a license and the kids and Rona and I. And I told Rona, we're going to be coming through Watertown, New York, and the New York Turnpike and all that. It's going to be pretty nice, level roads. You're going to learn to drive that truck. And I'd had some things where what you got to do is you can figure out how to run it through the gears, but when you're going 40 and you're getting on an off ramp, you need to be at 2,000 RPM. Put everything at 2,000 RPM, you would slip it into sixth gear, or something like that. So I'd given her a few pointers on how to do it. And then, so she drives her home from, once we get into the United States, from Montreal. Right. Once we get there, get into New York, then she starts driving and we get home and everyone's asking, how did we do? And my kids, one was 13, I think, and the other was 11, whatever age they were, they said, it was pretty neat because we learned all kinds of new words. Hey, Rona, don't.
Oh, gosh. What were some of the biggest wrecks or explosions you had over the years?
Not many.
Not many.
No.
You were pretty...
And that was one of the reasons that my wife said it wasn't that bad, that when I went to race that fuel funny car, not just me, everyone that does that gets a feel for their car.
Right.
And she knew that I was going to get a feel for the car and I would try not to drive over my head,
right,
which is what it's called.
Yeah.
And only having one engine, I would try and save parts. And
you had to
there's a story Marty always liked about running. She's going, your car don't run on the big end. The big ends have finished. Your car don't run on the big end. I go, Rona, I know when I'm ahead of the guy, I can tell, and I may ease her back because I don't want to hurt parts. Or the guy's so far ahead of me, I don't want to use it up. I know I'm beat. So
right.
She goes, but I'm telling you, your car don't run on the big end. So we were at Brainerd one year, at that year, right at that time, and I decide I'm going to run it out the back door, which means
right.
So we go down through
push
there.
It all the way through.
Yeah, and it don't run on the big end. So someone that don't know nothing about nothing knows my car don't run on the big end.
She's seen enough of it.
She had to get me straightened out.
So you figured out how to get it to run on the big end?
Well, what happened is when I ran my fuel funny car, when I built it, I decided I've got to have more fuel. I need more fuel because that's what makes it go.
Right.
I need to be able to burn more nitro. That's why I had big cylinder heads,
right,
big cam, big, all that, and It worked really good. I could detune it, not burn it up. I could run the whole quarter mile and have all the parts there. So anyway, I had this fuel pump, found this thing, and the fuel pump was made in World War II when they took fuel out of a tank for this, for the airplane. when the tank would get so low, they had a pump that would pump gas out of that pump or out of that tank into that one to keep the plane balanced.
Right.
And so this thing was a great, it was a big pump, and I figured out how to do this and that. And actually, this is a little story come into it. I better tell this story first. So anyway, when we go to U.S. Nationals and we set the record and do all this stuff in one motor and don't hurt parts, and the guys that are not even running as good, they're burning them up and all that. And so we're driving home from the U.S. Nationals, and I go, I'm talking to Ron, and I go, what's going to happen here is these guys, they've been out there racing fuel all those years, and they know there's no old alcohol racer that can outsmart us on that. And so those guys aren't going to want to, they're not going to want to run billet heads. It isn't the heads that are doing it. And there's going to be the guys that go, hell, the guy's a dang old farmer. He can't be outsmarting us. And they're going to have all these things, and then they're going to go, you know what? That guy's got that oddball fuel pump. That's going to be the thing. So I get home, and I come up with this fuel pump. I designed this fuel pump. I have one in there, as a matter of fact. I kept one. I only made 4. But I come up with this way of making this fuel pump, and I wasn't getting them out fast enough. But all these guys, we got a list of over 50 names of guys that wanted that fuel pump. It's got to be the fuel pump. So anyway, Jim Head bought me out. He bought the whole thing and started making them, which in the meantime, Sid Waterman knew what I was doing, and he had a pump made similar. So, but then I made a bigger one. I made one that was bigger, and I overdrove it. Well, they didn't spin it that fast on the old airplanes.
Right.
Well, I was spinning this pump so fast that it was cavitating.
Oh, yeah.
So when I went going overboard on this whole fuel thing, the pump would run so fast it would cavitate, and so it would go like heck until the motor got up into that high RPM, and then it would nose over. So it would run harder through here, and then kind of nose over there, and I would feel it nose over.
So you had to fix that problem.
Yeah, right. Yep, we had to fix it. It wasn't, it's like sometimes you learn from your mistakes.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Interesting too, how many things you designed and built that eventually others started to use. I mean,
one that I did is, that most people know this other than the billet head thing. Like I came up with the first 1471 blower.
Really?
Yep. I took, like the foundry was right down here in Orville.
Yeah.
The cast, the cases and that. And so what I did is I got them, and they were making I made injector spacers 50 years ago. They're a big thing today.
Right.
Everyone's got them today. Well, I made these things 50 years ago. And I got them, some of them I made out of magnesium. I would have them cast down here, quality casting. So I knew those guys down there pretty good. And I told them, you ever get a case that's bad on the front, keep it. Don't send it off and have it redone so you can melt it down again. Keep that thing, and I'll buy it from you for scrap. And then when you get one on the back that's messed up on the back, I'll get that, and I'll take these 2 cases and weld them together. So what they did is the guys in the back were nice guys. They liked me. And they screwed one up on the back and one up on the front and called me and said, hey, we got these cases. So then I went to, so now I got these 2 cases that I weld together, take it back to them and heat treat it. And then I sent it off to Larry Bowers. I sent it off to Mert Littlefield. Whoever it was, anyway, I had to machine it. But I got rotors, and I got 4 rotors and cut 2 of them up and had these long shafts. I didn't have a lathe, I couldn't do it then, but I had these long shafts made, and I pressed it all together. So I had 2 rotors making one, and then 2 rotors making the other one. And that was the first 1471. And now that's the standard, that's a standard thing that there is.
Gosh, I wish I'd have kept track in the beginning when you started this, because I don't know how many I know there's some you're not telling me about that you're not thinking about, but you created a lot of things that became kind of
the blower was a big one.
Yeah.
And in the billet,
the head,
making the head out of a thing is, the valve angles that I use right there is the valve angles in every top fuel car.
Oh, really?
Everything is on that
You
ankle.
don't care if everybody knows that at this point?
My dad in 1978 is going, you got to get a patent on this. You need to patent that. Well, I looked into it, and you couldn't patent that head in 1978 because there had already been a patent on a Hemi head, or on a V8 head in like 1915 or something.
Oh.
So you couldn't do that. But then a few years later, they come up with this thing, you can patent an idea. It's just like you couldn't get a patent on a mousetrap, but you could get a patent if you had a different way of making that mousetrap. So
right.
They eventually made it where I could have got a patent, but like I told my dad, I'm not putting any time into it. I only made that head because that's what I want. I need that head, and everything I had, like I made 30 or 40 different things. It was all things that I needed.
What do you think would have happened if you hadn't let others know what you had?
Oh, they would all do it. It would be done. Eventually, now with
but you might have been more dominant for a longer time because you kept
people didn't believe it. I actually told guys exactly what I was doing. They'd ask me, what do you do about this and that? And I would tell them, because I figured, I spent time thinking this out, figuring it out. I know it better than the guy I tell. If that guy just copies that, he don't even know why he copied that. Where I know why it's made that way because I figured it out.
Right.
So I didn't care.
You didn't care.
Nah, it
didn't bother you.
Didn't make any difference.
Any other stories?
You want another story? I could tell you, like we had all these stories. We used to have this problem in Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
Boise, Idaho was 850 miles from LA, from where we lived, the beach area. And let's see, one would be, this one, people like this, I've told this story before. Like that ramp truck I had, I made it all. I lengthened the frame, I made the drive shafts, I did it all. In that drive shaft support, it was I had to make a 3-piece drive shaft. So the thing come with a 2-piece drive shaft, and so the support bearing to hold it in the middle was the same as a 59 to 50, 59 to 64 Chevy, which I knew that thing. I knew what bearing it was, what carried.
Right.
So here we are. We're coming out of Boise, Idaho with this truck that would easily run 100 miles an hour, and it'd easily go. I had hopped up, had a 375 horse big block in it, that I put in it. And it had this big, tall ratio rear end. And so we're coming out of Boise, Idaho, and almost the whole trip was 2-lane road in those days. And following these old 180 horsepower semis, they didn't have any power in those days. And it'd be up the hill. Oh, God, we're going 10, 15 miles an hour. And then down the other side, they'd go like heck. So I just said, hey, the next time, I don't care if we're going downhill 90 miles an hour, I'm passing. I got to get ahead of this dang old semi. So we get around the dang old semi, and the drive shaft, I feel this vibration starting. Oh my God, it's the drive shaft. And I get the truck hauled off to the side, and now we're down in this kind of gully between two mountains or hills or whatever you call them. And I'm laying under there trying to wire this thing up. And I'm pliers, and the guy that was helping me, it was just Rona and this Mike Hayden, and I, screwdriver, and he's handing stuff under. And I get these scissors, and I'm laying under there, and the wind's blowing down through this thing. And in 1973, would have been somewhere along, everyone had to have this long hair. We all thought we were hippies. And so I come out from under there, and there's no hair could get in my eyes because it kept blowing in my face, and I just
Cut all
So I
that.
cut her off of there. But then we went on down, I got the thing wired up, and we went on down the road, and we got to a place where these states come together. Probably would have been, I don't even remember what states they were, but there was a gas station there, one of those old eat and get gas things, and they had I see the 64 Chevy wrecked sitting out, and behind there was a whole bunch of cars that were out there. And I asked this old boy, can I get a drive shaft support bearing out of that car? And this guy goes, you can have anything you want out of any car back there. They're just scrap. And I go, well, I'll have to get under to get that support bearing out. He goes, well, let me tell you, under those cars is where the rattlesnakes like to live.
Oh, jeez.
So in the meantime, a bunch of guys we were racing with, they come along. And there was enough of us that we run out there, grab a hold of that car, roll that thing over, and run like a son of a gun. And so we got that drive shaft fixed, and away we went. So the first time we go to Boise, it's 850 miles. And I go, okay, Rona, I want you to go to the AAA and get me a map of the western United States, because I want to look at, here is Redondo Beach, California, and here is Boise, Idaho. What is going to be my best way of getting there? So I want a map of the western United States. So I know I'm going to have to start out, once I get out of the LA area, I'm going to have to get on 395. And so I'm driving along up on 395, and I go, where's that map of western United States? And she gets this thing out, and it's about this wide and about that tall. And they called them tripsticks. So she goes, I'd go, I can't see from here to there. It's going to be on all the... She goes, well, every 100 miles we'll just tear off a piece. The guy that's with me goes, you'll be so tired by the time we get there, we won't be able to race.
It was so small you could.
Or there was the Boise, Idaho one. When the guy that runs the track, he put us racers up at a nice hotel, and that was the roadway in. It was the best hotel in Boise, Idaho. And be goddamned if they don't break into our room. They broke into 7 rooms altogether. Some horse guys and some drag guys, and they went in there and they got into my pants and got my wallet, took her purse, and it winds up, we don't have any money. The guy that was with me, they got his wallet. Shoot. We're trying to figure, how in the hell are we going to get home? Well, I had a gas tank that held 150 gallons. We could go 750 miles or something. I forget exactly how it worked. But it's we're starting out and we're driving in Boise or we're driving in Idaho, and it's holy cow, what are we going to do? So Rona goes, let's just stop at a gas station. I'll go in and ask him. She said, let's just ask him. So we go into this gas station, and Rona, she's a little cutie in those days, and she goes in and talks to this gas station attendant and said, we need to get some gas to get home. The guy said, well, I'll fill her up and you can send me a check. Yeah. And that guy filled up our tank and let us go down the road. Can you imagine doing that today?
Not today. Tell you what, life was a little simpler back then.
Or another Boise thing was, we were racing Boise, Idaho on Saturday night. And so on Friday night after work, this is when I get my first pickup and trailer, because they come along with that 55 mile an hour speed limit. It didn't make any difference what you had. So I got this crew cab and pickup trailer, and we head off to Boise, Idaho. We drive all night, leave Friday night after work, drive up there, race Saturday night at Boise, and NHRA had this thing at some of these tracks, and Salt Lake City was one of them. They qualified Friday night and Saturday, and if you had the nerve to try it, you could go there and make one run on Sunday And if you got in on that one run, you were in the show. So we decided, let's drive from Boise. We'll drive from Boise to Salt Lake City. So here we go. All night again, another night not going to bed. So this was the second night we hadn't been to bed. And we get there and we qualify, and son of a gun, if we don't win the goddamn race. So now it's Sunday evening, and I got to get back to my shop. And I said, okay, Rona, here's the deal. We got this pickup truck, and you said you never wanted to pull one of those dang trailers. Well, you're going to pull a trailer. We get out here on Interstate 15, because there's an interstate would go right through there and go right to Las Vegas. And I said, we get out there and you get in the right lane and drive 55 miles an hour, and you can get to Las Vegas by, sunlight in the morning. And they had planes that would fly from Vegas to LA to get people to go back and forth, $9. And I said, for $9, you can drop me off at the airport. I'll fly back to LA and I can get to work. And Mike will drive the truck then, because you'll be tired staying up all night. So we get to dang old Las Vegas and it's dark out. And she said, come get up, we're at the airport. And I go, we're not the right dang airport. It's dark out. Oh yeah, how in the heck did we get here this quick? And she said, well, old Butch Leal passed me, and it was another racer.
Right.
But Butch Leal passed, and I thought, yeah, heck, whatever Butch can do, I can do. And she took off behind him. And so here we were at the dang Las Vegas airport.
Got there early.
Yeah, got there early, and Mike drove the truck home, and I flew in, because my shop was about 7 miles or so from the airport to Redondo Beach. And
so you got a ride, and it all worked out. Well, I'm sure we could keep telling stories for hours. I just want to thank you for letting us stop by and interrupt your day and sit in your shop here and reminisce and record all this. A lot of people have been looking forward to this, including myself. This is one I've been highlighted to do. So I appreciate that tremendously. Gosh, the only thing I think of when I think of you and Rona, I think of two lives that have been well lived so far. You guys have done so much, inspired so many people. A couple of takeaways I think that people need to think about is, one, you are in show business if you're in motorsports, and you need to put on a good show, because that's what keeps the sports moving forward. And the other thing is, just set your mind to doing whatever it is you want to do, and you can accomplish it. It doesn't always turn out the way you think it will, but at the end, result's usually there. So thank you very much, Ken, for sitting down.
We can't end this without Marty.
Okay.
Marty, I couldn't, I'm old enough that a lot of things are hard to do. And Marty's not the technician that works on my tractor, but going to the dang tractor pull without Marty Wilson is pretty dang hard to do.
Okay.
And this year, it was debatable whether 2025 if I was going to go pulling or not. But my daughter said she had never done this. And, tractor pulling, she used to go to all the races.
Right.
She goes, you need help, and I will go to every pull that you go to in 2025. So because of my daughter, that's the reason we pulled last year.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Marty helped you out as well, some?
Oh yeah, Marty did. He was a physical guy. He started it. He could pick that wheel and tire up and slide it right on there, and I'd be fighting away. Old puny 85-year-old guy. And, Marty could just help do all those things. He was just
good support.
Just a good sport.
So between Terry and Marty, you were able to go 2025, and you're going to give it another shot in 26.
Yes, only I'm not going NTPA.
Okay.
They got too many pulls. I'm not doing all that.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
No, I'm going to pull Ohio State and some NTPA and maybe maybe, PPL pull once in a while,
Yeah.
but I'm not traveling.
Cherry picking and having fun.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I should mention, I have a son.
Yes.
I have a son that, unfortunately, he wanted to do what his dad did. Always wanted to do what his dad did. I think that happens in families a lot. Well, he wanted to be a drag racer, and he wanted to race an alcohol funny car. Because that's what, even though I raced fuel funny cars, I raced all the other stuff, dragsters and all. I was always known as an old alcohol funny car racer. And like my son, he used to write national dragsters when he was a little shaver like this. He would write those national dragsters, and believe it or not, I won all the races and and all that. So when he was going to college, the head of the National Dragster Racing magazine that came out here, they asked him, asked Rona, what's Todd doing? Oh, he's going to college. And they said, you know what? You have him take some, what are those classes Todd took? Yeah, take those kind of classes.
Business communications.
We'll give him a job. We'll see how that goes. And so he graduated from college and moved to California, went right to work for him.
And so that's what he does now?
Well, he worked for him for 19 years.
Okay.
A writer. He wrote every week, and he was a writer for 19 years. And then he wanted to have his alcohol funny car. And so you couldn't race NHRA races and work for him.
Okay. So that's why he ended that.
So that ended that. And then he was a freelance guy. And then this Roger Burgess, or Ashley, the dad, he told Todd, you can write your stories and you can be my test driver. You can drive he had a AA fuel funny car.
Gotcha.
So Todd quit doing everything so he could drive that AA fuel funny car. He was going to be the test driver, and because Ashley had to go take care of his business, and when they test, he would. So the only trouble was he sold the car.
Oh no!
And Todd had quit his job. So Todd wound up. He had done a little bit of ESPN sports thing, and he was the guy that looked at all these TV screens and decided what it was you look at. So anyway, he did that a little bit, while he was driving.
Okay.
But then Fox Sports took over drag racing, and they gave him the job full time. So I think he's been there. This is either his 9th or 10th year.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So he doesn't have anything to do with commercials or anything, but he picks out what it is. He says, 13, go interview this guy, and 7, these different people are there. So-and-so, go interview that person. And then he just shows what it is you're going to, what you're going to, racing things you're going to see.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
So and Terry, when she was in college, she would go to the races, and she would work for Fram as a little Fram girl, handing out things and all that stuff, and a Winston.
Yep. And
she did all that, while she was going to college.
Right.
And then her husband was a Goodyear tire engineer.
Okay.
So that's how her and her husband met. They flew to all the races and back and forth to going to the races, and they met, and they've been married 35 years now.
So drag racing's not only impacted you and Rona,
it brought the whole family along.
The whole family came along into the sport because of it. So it's sometimes families farm and they keep doing that for generations. In your case, it's been motorsports.
But you know what? I wouldn't do it now for $1 million, but I'd love to have been a farmer. I would love to have been, but it was just at the time, cars and girls were big. And to think about going bigger into milking cows, I wasn't going to do that.
Well, it's a little different. We know they farm differently today than
Oh,
they
yeah.
did the way you would have needed to.
Yep.
But there's no doubt in my mind you'd have been successful
Oh,
if you'd have done it.
I got up and I was the cow milker in the morning. I got up and milked the cows and then got on the school bus.
Yep. I'm well aware how that works.
Yeah. And, you know, and when I went to the country school, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But then when I got to the 10th grade, we went to the city school, and everyone went to the same high school. And it was like, I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I felt like I smelled like a damn barn or a cow. And I'm in there with all these little city girls. And
Yeah.
I was never comfortable
That
when I went to
bothered
that
you.
school.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for sharing those. I really appreciate it. I'm going to wrap this up. And I don't know, with all the stories, maybe we need to sit down another time, but that'd be another day. So thank you for watching this episode of Breaking Barriers podcast. We appreciate you tuning in and listening to Ken and all the experiences and stories that he has shared with us. So many life lessons we can learn from Ken. If you like this content, please like, subscribe on whatever channel or platform you're following it. Share it with your friends and family, as we do appreciate that. Thanks again for watching Breaking Barriers.
Breaking Barriers.